Hi, I'm Connie Nagel. I'm a master gardener in Scott County, and I'm here joined today with two of my fellow master gardeners, Faye Waterman and Ray Wolf, and we're going to talk about the Pollinator Garden, which is under the exclamation point at Putnam Museum. Well, let's begin with some basic information about pollinators, what they are, why they're important. Faye, can you tell us a little bit about that?
I will. Pollinators are animals, insects that pollinate, take nectar, the pollen from one plant to another, and therefore fertilizes the fruits. Three-fourths of the food we eat, fruits and vegetables, are pollinated by our insects. So without them, we'd be starving, I think. The wind pollinates our grains, but you have to have the insects for the pollination here. This garden contains grasses, annuals, perennials. Perennials are plants that come back every year. Annuals are ones that we plant every spring, and they both contribute to the pollinators in terms of a host where the bees, the monarchs particularly, can lay their eggs and where the caterpillars can eat. They also bloom constantly, so there's nectar for the birds, hummingbirds, the uh, the bees, the native bees that come along to pollinate. We have host plants. For example, this magnolia tree is a host plant for the eastern swallowtail. And so the swallowtail will lay its eggs on the leaves, and the caterpillars will eat this. And we have our early butterflies from that. Other plants are early blooming. You have columbine back here that's not blooming, but it's one of the first plants that the pollinators can find. The addition for the Putnam, the IMAX Theater, was done about 2000, and they put in the iconic exclamation point. This was covered with weeds, taller than I. I'm not very tall, but the weeds were taller. And the Putnam came to us and said, is there any way master gardeners could be involved to improve this? And we brainstormed, and we thought, what a perfect place to have a pollinator garden. It's a natural science museum. And so we went from tall weeds to clearing the ground, amending the soil a bit. The soil is not very good. And then we started planting in 2017. And the pollinator garden is the bedrock of that. It's here year round, and anybody can come and look at this, look at the plants. There are sheets with information on the plants. We'll be putting this on the Putnam's website too. So these are plants that anyone can grow in his or her garden. You don't need a huge space at all. And it's here. It's been very successful.
You know, lots of times as gardeners, we just start taking plants that we like and we think, oh, I'll buy that one. It looks really nice. I'll stick it in here and stick it there. But this garden, it really had a plan. And Ray, can you tell us a little bit about
Sure.
planning the garden and how it got going, what kind of considerations you had to take?
Well, as Faye mentioned, you need flowering plants for the pollinators and host plants for their larval forms as well. So you want a variety of plants, that's important. You want to have blooms through the whole season, starting in the early spring and continuing even through the fall. The fall's an important time as pollinators are either migrating back south or getting ready for the winter. In a general sense, after amending the soil a bit and getting a good foundation for growth, you tend to want to put the taller things in the back and the shorter things in the front. Some of the shorter things we have in front, because we're basically in a parking lot here, are very heat tolerant. Some of the grasses and the sedums especially. So having those up front is very important.
Ray, how did you prepare the soil?
So we added a little bit of compost, probably pulled out a lot of rock and broke up the clay. Compost is available here locally, and it's not very expensive. And the importance of getting the soil right is that it cuts down on the amount of work you have later on. If you start with a good foundation, with a good soil, When it rains, that water will infiltrate and be available when we get into the dry periods in the hotter part of the middle and latter parts of summer.
Now, this garden is designated as a Monarch way station. Can you talk a little bit about that and what was involved in getting that designation?
Sure. Monarch Way Station documents that we basically have developed a habitat that's suitable for monarch butterflies, and that includes the milkweed species for the larvae to eat, and then various flowers for the butterfly to pull nectar from. You can, in your home, develop a Monarch Way Station. There are criteria that are available on the web. Look for monarchwaystation.org, I believe is the website at the University of Kansas. And you can apply for the designation and tell them what you have in your garden and how it's set up, and they will get back to you and provide feedback on how your garden is a suitable habitat for monarchs.
Ray, are monarchs endangered?
So, well, there certainly are concerns about monarch population, and those concerns stem from two factors. One is the loss of habitat, not only where they overwinter in Mexico, but also in the United States, as the population of milkweeds over the last few decades has decreased. Hence the importance of having a Monarch Way Station like this and doing things in your yard that would support the continued population of monarchs. But another factor also is climate, especially we've seen with these climate extremes. Monarchs are very sensitive. Insects respond and are sensitive to temperature. So extremes of heat and dry or extremes of cold, especially occurring at the wrong time of the year, can cut their population numbers back.
So, what can a person do to attract and encourage monarchs, or likewise not do? Are there specific things?
Yeah, I think the important things that you can do is look at what sort of species, plant species, the monarchs like. We know the larvae like the milkweed, so having milkweeds in your yard is very helpful, and then the nectar plants for the adults. And trying to get them in a good sunny area, which is what monarchs prefer. Something to avoid is maybe excessively using chemicals in your yard to kill insects. And you might end up killing the very insects you're trying to attract in your yard through heavy use of chemicals.
Let's talk about some of the other plants in the garden. Faye, do you have any that are your real favorites?
Whatever is blooming is my favorite at the time. But, I have to say, although it's not a native, the butterfly bush, and we have two of them in this garden, the Black Knight, I think, is the variety of dark purple. The monarchs, the hummingbirds, the bumblebees, everybody loves the butterfly bush, and it blooms from, I think, June until frost, and they get tall. They're beautiful. Right now, the pink over here is pink turtlehead. That's a fall blooming plant. That's attractive. The zinnias are wonderful. Zinnias are annuals. We're over here working, always deadheading the annuals so that they keep blooming. If you let them go to seed, then they think they're done, and so we're always deadheading to keep the annuals blooming. Zinnias are beautiful. Those are my favorites.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned annuals, because there is a combination here. Annuals, perennials, some grasses. And what's the reason for that?
Well, having a combination of perennials and annuals ensure you have a lengthy bloom season, and there are plenty of flowers available for the pollinators to pollinate. The nice thing about annuals is many of them are very easy to grow from seed. You can just put seed in the garden and keep it watered the first week or so, and it'll start taking off. And that includes some of the tropical milkweed that we have here, and the zinnias that Faye mentioned are easy ones to grow. Cosmos is another popular variety that's easy to grow.
And how else did you get plants for this? Did you purchase plants or
We-
get divisions?
We we purchased some. Prairie Moon Nursery was our big source, and they have natives that are appropriate for this zone. But many of the plants came from our own gardens. Master gardeners have donated these. The annuals we either raise from seed, as Ray mentioned, but we also purchase the seedlings, the Big Brothers Big Sisters annual plant sale. It's always a good source. You can get your marigolds, cosmos, zinnias, the salvia here that's blooming. These come from the Big Brothers Big Sisters plant sale. And it's so pretty, right? So we get it from a variety of sources, and then each spring we divide and put them in the Master Gardener's plant sale, so people can buy our plants from here. Or what we tried to do with this garden is make it full of plants that people could find anywhere. We don't want it to be difficult for somebody to start a pollinator garden, so they can go to a nursery or a big box store and they can find the asters, the coneflowers, bee balm, all the things that are really attractive to our pollinators.
And the yarrow, that's one of my favorites.
Yes.
I love to run my fingers along the leaves and just get the fragrance from that. Ray, how about you?
Some of my favorite flowers in the garden are those that bloom in the fall. Folks tend not to think about fall as much as they do spring and summer. And we see here behind me the sedums, kind of a pinkish hue to them. The bumblebees especially, but butterflies as well, just love this. There aren't many options in the fall typically. Some others that are good include goldenrod and New England aster. The goldenrod is a bright gold color and is really complemented nicely by the purple of the New England asters. And you might see these two are native plants that you might catch along the roadsides, along the interstates. But the nice thing about this sedum, you can see here, is it's on the edge of the parking lot. It's a pretty tolerant plant. It can deal with hot and dry weather very easily. And so if you have that hot spot in your yard that gets a lot of sun and the soil is pretty heavy with clay, it's a good choice for those spots. And the importance of natives, of course, is they've been here, and it's what the various pollinators have evolved with and what they're used to seeing. So having the natives as the foundation for your garden is very important, and then you can accentuate that with annuals and non-natives, for example, like we see with the zinnias in orange behind me.
How will visitors know which plant is which?
We have labels. When we started, the plants were very small, spaced far apart, and so I did photos of the plants, but I printed them with my inkjet, and so the sun has bleached everything out. So it was a garden of labels for a long time. We've changed, so now I'm printing this, for example. This is a catmint. So we put the botanical name, which is Nepeta racemosa. The variety is Walker's Low. The common name is catmint. And these are indestructible unless a garbage truck runs over them. So, but we also have a list, an Excel spreadsheet that every Saturday morning when we're here, we have those printed lists. So the public is invited to take a list. And I think we're going to have this up on the Putnam website with a list of plants. Again, you've got your botanical name, your common name. You can come to the Master Gardener's plant sale or any plant sale or nursery and buy the plants. You can come here, see what they look like, and know when they bloom so you can plan your pollinator garden.
And who takes care of this garden?
Master gardeners are here every Saturday morning from 8 until 10. We drag water. There's no faucet here, unfortunately. We drag water from the Putnam Museum. We have a big hose reel. We drag it out here and we water the garden for about 2 hours. This summer's been very difficult. We went about 6 weeks without rain, and 2 hours of water every Saturday morning was all it was able to get. So it should be more lush than it is right now, but everything is surviving. Gardeners are here, master gardeners are here, and the public is invited to come ask any question about the plants. Master gardeners also learn about these plants when they're here because You see the stages, the buds, the blooms, when they need to be deadheaded to cut them back. And we go from May until the very end of September. We don't do a fall cleanup. We leave everything standing over the winter, especially our native bees sometimes lay eggs in the stems of the plant. So we leave everything standing. The seeds on the flowers will feed the birds over the winter, so it's a win-win situation. Makes for a big spring cleanup, which we do in order to get ready, but that's good.
So when are Master Gardeners actually here at the garden? Somebody wants to talk to somebody in person.
Every Saturday morning from 8 until 10 we're here, and we can answer questions. The Hort Clinic is also available.
In addition to visiting the Putnam Pollinator Garden, you can also visit demonstration gardens at our local extension office located on 875 Tanglefoot Lane in Bettendorf. You'll find many of the same plants we talked about in this video, plus many other annuals, perennials, vegetables, a shade garden, and a rain garden. Signs displaying QR codes are placed next to the plants. Just use your smartphone to access lots of useful information. You can also call, email, or visit the Scott County Extension Office for more gardening information. A Hort Clinic managed by Master Gardener volunteers is available many hours each week. Please call the office to find the days and times that the clinic is open. If we don't know the answer to your question, we'll do the research and get back to you as soon as possible. Other materials are available by visiting the websites listed at the end of this video. Thank you so much for joining us at the Putnam Pollinator Garden.